Fire Chief Merritt, did you have something to interject?
I just appreciate your comments about typically when we, let me just speak from a consultant standpoint, when we approach councils or fire commissioners, if it's a fire district, and we put together these models, we try to stick with the methodology that we begin with saying, we believe that, and everyone knows it's the job of the legislative body to establish reasonable levels of service for their community. That's why people elect you. And so we say, from an incremental standpoint, we like to walk them through that exercise and say, what do you believe is an acceptable level of service? And I'll give you an example in a second of how that has worked. And that is, again, divided by the time it takes to get there, the number of people that are there, their level of training. Okay, I gave an example, and the task force thought it was odd and almost ridiculous. That I said, well, one of the models you could have is you could say that we're going to respond to fires, and all we're going to do is do a defensive attack. We're going to stand outside and we're going to lob water. If that would be the case, I could probably do that with a much less trained group of folks and a lot less equipment and what have you, and we'd save the foundation and the neighbor's house. I mean, there's a correlation there between number of people, type of training, type of equipment, kind of things. So we ask, what we ask of the electeds is, what's an acceptable level of service? How soon do you want them there? And what is the level of training, certification, or expertise that you want them to have? From that, we're able to build models. We can tell you mathematically how many firefighters, where the fire station should be, how many people should be there, what kind of shifts they should work, what kind of training they should have. And then based upon that, we can cost that out. But to approach it from a cost standpoint can be done, but it's a little awkward. An example was a jurisdiction that I did a regional fire authority for. I facilitated the first in the state of Washington. And when we first talked about levels of service, the council said, you know what, we want the red truck in front of that fire station, or in front of that house, in 6 minutes. That's what we think is an acceptable level of service. We went back and we did all of the math. They currently had 3 stations. We said, well, you need to add 3 additional stations and 60 firefighters. And they choked and they said, how about 7 minutes? And we went through that exercise until we arrived at something that they thought was affordable, which was their current level of service.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, and I really appreciate all of the work that went into these comparisons, and I'm trying to digest these comparisons with the other jurisdictions, and I don't know what they have. And so when I'm talking about cost, I'd like to, since we have a very short timeline, I'd like to cut through some of this process you're talking about, because I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I would like to have, at least the level of service that we have now. What I don't understand about these comparisons and the charts is why it is that some other jurisdictions seem to be able to meet their budgets and have some level of service. Either theirs is completely inferior to what we have, or they're doing it in some other way. I'd like to be able to cut through that, because if we could keep the level of service we have, that would be great. But we may not be able to, for some reason we're blowing through our budget this year, at least the year, this year that I'm here and that I know about, and I'm trying to sort out what the numbers mean. So when I'm talking about cost, that's what I'm trying to get at, is could we sort of skip a little of that experimental step where we all go, yeah, we would like to have the moon, and oh, we can't afford the moon, and just get down to what it is that, can we get some comparison or something to work with so that we can skip through that first part, I guess is what I'm asking for.